So when we talk about podcasting and we talk about content creation, let's kind of lean towards what are some of the biggest mistakes people make on all those sides. We can start with podcasting first, and then we can move to content creation and marketing.
Sure. So podcasting mistakes, definitely. So if you don't have a brand built up yet, don't just discredit audio quality. A lot of people think they don't need good audio quality. You don't need the best audio quality in the world, but something and it's small things that add up, right? But something that's just going to set you apart from other podcasts that people listen to is better audio quality. So don't just be talking on your headphones or something, right? A mic like this is good enough, and it's relatively inexpensive. It's about $100. So that don't add to the noise ratio. Okay. Whenever you're doing the signal noise ratio, don't just do very informational level topics that people can just find subsurface level information on. Like the things that I'm spitting right now, like I'm telling you right now, these are things that you're not going to find easily with a Google search or on Instagram or anywhere like that. I'm more advanced level topics here, but it's anybody that could apply it. But if you bring on guests that just stay on the superficial level of things like motivation and things like that they can work, but because they have an emotional context to it. But if they're just superficial, no vocality, no vocal tone, just kind of like a boring lecture of really basic things, no one's going to engage with that. No one's going to care about that, right? So you're always trying to think about what's going to set you apart from other podcasters. What makes someone want to keep coming back to you, right? And it's even little things like don't be flat. Bring in emotions, have conversation instead of just ask straight questions after question after question. Those are some of the mistakes that I see right off the bat. Don't put too much pressure on yourself when it comes to the podcast. Be relaxed. And this comes with experience naturally. I do this great host training slide session with all my clients that I have, because really a good podcast isn't just on the outside. I would say 50% is on the internal as well. It's about how good of a host you are. It's how you can manage conversations and direct conversations and cut bad threads and go to good threads, so on and so forth, right? And that comes with experience. Now on the content side, what mistakes that I see is, again, the biggest mistake that I see is a signal to noise ratio. I think a lot of businesses just expect that they can just throw some content out there and it's going to magically get them more business. And we all know it's 2021. That doesn't happen, right? It's how can you cut through the noise and really put stuff out there and then leverage where the organic traffic is coming on social media to your fullest advantage, right? And some key tips right there that I can give you guys is, if you're making video/audio content, make the first 5 seconds the most engaging, no matter what platform it is. That's universal. That's a universal law right there. Make sure that you're spending more of your time on platforms or on features of platforms that are giving you higher ROI. Like for right now, it's YouTube Shorts, Instagram Reels, and TikTok, and LinkedIn as well. And focus less on creating content for your Facebook page, because Facebook has killed that. So that's another mistake that I see, that people are still sticking to old ways and not really innovating and using new platforms and new features. And number 3, do your research, constantly be testing A/B testing, seeing what formats work, seeing what formats don't, optimizing, looking at your analytics. That's really how you grow. And that's really how you get business. And the fourth one, bonus one here, is engagement. Do not forget to engage with the people that are already following you. There are human beings on the other side. I like to think of it this way. If even one person, and this is a very business way to look at it, but if even one person that's following you on Instagram, if you have 200 people that are following you, if even one person gives you 10K, if it gives you $10,000 just to do a service for them, I mean, it pays off. Right. So what do you need 2 million followers for if you're getting 2,000 followers and 10 of them give you $10,000 each? You're already making $120,000 a year right there. Right. So focus on nurturing who you have just as much as bringing on new people.
So first of all, great things. Great advice over there. I wanted to take it back to the first point that you were talking about, which was bringing in those guests and making sure they are not superficial in their topic. So I've had another guest that spoke about 2 ways of doing a podcast, the hybrid method. One is you bring on guests, but also time to time throwing in a solo episode in there, where it's just you, so that your audience gets to know you better versus just being an interviewer. What's your advice or suggestion on that?
It's a good cadence. That's the kind of cadence that I use for my podcast, and I tend to use it a lot for a lot of my clients. And that's simply because doing those single value-based episodes builds that connection and your thought leadership in this space. If you only did interviews, people are going to start to associate themselves with your guests instead of you. And you don't want that. If you're a good podcast host, you won't let that happen. You can steer the conversations in a way and bring input in where they're used to you as a host. But it's a good cadence to have, especially when you're first starting out. For the first 50 episodes, I would say. Now, depending on how many interviews versus how many single value-based episodes you're going to do is really, really dependent on what your business is. If you're doing it for a business, if you're doing it for a hobby, what the reason is behind the podcast in the first place, right? Because I've seen many successful podcasts that just have single value-based episodes as well, and they work incredibly well. It really is dependent on kind of the angle you're trying to take, right? It really is. So I'd say my biggest answer for that would be it's dependent, right? But all these formats work. All of them work.
And any suggestions or thoughts on consistency as far as weekly versus monthly versus sporadic, which some people do?
I would definitely say weekly. Monthly, I think, is too long drawn out, unless you're a like story-based podcast or something that's very, very highly polished, because then you have people anticipating for the next episode. Then it almost becomes like radio show-esque with really, really nice like audio quality and music and all sorts of stuff. But 99% of podcasts aren't like that. Or even if it's a series-based podcast, they can definitely get away with once a month. But if any other podcast where you have episodic but not series, I would say at least once a week. Definitely not sporadic, because you want your audience to know that they have consistently content they can come to expect when you're releasing your episode. They come to tune in. What you do if you're sporadic, you can miss a few weeks, and that's okay once in a while, even though it's probably not good to, but you can miss it without hurting your numbers too much. But if you're sporadic, your audience is never going to know when your show's coming out. And if they don't know when your show's coming out, then half of your audience might completely miss your show. So that's a negative of sporadic. Now, I'm coming from the camp now where to really even more stand out in the podcasting industry, to even step it up from once a week to maybe twice a week or 3 times a week, or however many more that you can do.
That's interesting.
Appreciate there's a good reason for that, if you don't mind me saying here. There's a good reason for increasing the frequency. Every single podcast is getting more downloads, right? So if I have 70 listeners, and this is, let's say, beginner level podcast, that's 70 listeners on the first podcast, 70 listeners on the second podcast episode, 70 listeners on the third podcast episode, and I've released all 3 in the week, I've essentially got 210 listens versus someone who released 1 episode once a week, 1 episode the next week. So that would be 3 weeks of 210 listens, right? So more frequency. And we even do this thing where we call it a relaunch strategy once in a while as well. Like we do this on a biannual basis generally, but you release like 4 episodes at once in the same day with like a 2-hour difference in between each, maybe like some sort of mini series that you do, and try to rack up the download numbers for all 4 episodes and rack up as many subscriptions and reviews for all 4 of those episodes. And that way the iTunes or Apple algorithm will actually boost you a little bit and get you more visibility that way. So
yeah, I know a friend of mine is started a podcast as well, and what they've done, which is very interesting strategy, I think it's similar to that, is they take an hour interview and they break it into 3 episodes.
That's a good idea. Yeah, that is a good idea.
So that way it's not content creation brain freeze where you're sitting there and thinking, what else can I speak on or talk about, and putting the pressure on yourself. So it was just another interesting thing, but that one's for free for you.
Yeah, I'd like to talk to that guy, because that's something I'd like to test now that I think about it.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So I'll leave you with this. What advice do you have for any entrepreneur, whether they are a aspiring entrepreneur or an experienced entrepreneur? And this could be as general as possible.
Okay, keep going, honestly. Grit, determination, and persistence. Those 3 will get you anywhere you want, anywhere. And I have to remind myself of that too, a lot. And I think anybody does. We're all in situations where there are moments where things get hard or things get tough and there's adversity. But I promise you, if you keep going, you'll see results, and it will happen for you. Just how dedicated are you is the question.
Awesome. Well, listen, Omar, I want to thank you for being a guest on the Business 360 podcast. I really appreciate the insights you shared, the value you brought, and I look forward to bringing you back sometime down the road.
Thanks for having me on, man.